just to give us some context for people who hopefully are going to be listening to this when we put it out. You never met me, but I was on a quarterly with Paul Morton, and you quite kindly give up your time to give us an hour Q&A session on the Alliance program. After that Q&A session, I bought the book 200%. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Some of the stuff you put in there made sense to me. I've read a few other books on meditation that were, how can I put it, a lot more harder to understand. And the way you worded things in the book certainly appealed to me and helped me understand it a lot better. And I just thought I'd do a review for my podcast and Incremental Gains, not thinking it would do anything. Many people would listen to it. I think about 37 people to this date have listened to it. However, when we talk about like looking at things, instant gratification and stuff, and I just put it out there, and then maybe a few weeks ago, I get a message from yourself that you found it. Hence why we're doing this podcast now. So that was amazing that you came across it, and I think it just shows you that if you put something out there with no real agenda, who knows who's watching?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you have kids, but I realized this a wee while ago that my kids watch everything that I do. So even on that level, you know, in the whole wide world, people are watching, but
yeah,
even closer than that, people watch what we do.
Definitely. And it kind of, we put things out there speaking and stuff, but it's all about the behaviors that we do and our actions. Obviously the cliche is actions speak louder than words, and it's never more so, is it?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I talk to so many people and they say, what can I do? I'm only one person. I'm this tiny little person in this, against this huge surmountable world and this big problem.
Yeah.
And I'm saying people are watching, that they're looking for how to do this, and you can show them the way. And that's, you know, as Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And then if you are that change, you can really start doing a few things, you know.
Definitely. So could you take us back and explain a little bit how your journey with meditation started, how you became is it Ascension monk? Am I correct in saying that's what it is, an Ascension meditation monk? Ishaya monk.
Yeah, the techniques are called Ascension, which just means to rise beyond the mind.
Okay.
Rise beyond limitation. Well, I started doing yoga back when I was in my early 20s. I used to be a competitive swimmer. I've always been really physically active. I was getting into whitewater kayaking, and I was getting a few niggles, a few injuries, a few just sore. You know, we'd spend a weekend kayaking, and I'd come back on Monday just like, oh. So yoga really was a way of stretching and what do they call it? Prehab, to try and prevent, you know, make myself as strong and flexible as possible so I could do the things that I wanted to do. And those yoga classes, I think it was once a week, maybe twice a week, they were just incredible. I walked home just feeling like I was floating 6 inches off the ground, just light and amazing, you know, and the best possible physical and mental shape. And so it kind of, I did a lot more yoga, but the meditation side always interested me. But that was the door in.
Yeah. So what was you doing before that? I read somewhere you was an outdoor leader.
I was outdoor instructor, so mainly taking kids, school camps, you know, just camping and throwing them into water and messing around with boats and ropes and but mainly because it was my hobby. I thought I could make my passion work for me, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. I mean, one of my big passions is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm currently in the process of, so I work part-time for a charity based in the area where I live, but I also teach Jiu-Jitsu part-time. So I'm in the process of trying to make my passion my full-time.
Brilliant.
Obviously, COVID hasn't helped, but
yeah.
But I mean,
I guess that's, you can do a lot of things online, but teaching something, grappling and whatever's,
definitely. But I mean, I think we'll touch on that a bit later on, like some of the stuff that I've learned from Paul Morton, from yourself, about this for me, things happen for me and not to me. That's definitely been, I mean, we may as well talk about it now, but that's definitely been something that's helped me, especially through COVID, rather than things happening to me. it worked for me, so I could spend more time building my own not-for-profit organisation, for example. I mean, there was massive, that just little mindset change for me there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's just an attitude, an assumption that you can assume that really works. Well, again, it works for us in the best possible way. Because otherwise we're a victim when we're pointing the finger and blaming everybody else. We're blaming a virus. And we're powerless then. We can't, when it's everybody else's fault, we can't do anything. We're waiting for things to change. And if you go, well, maybe if this is happening for me, all of a sudden it's like, awesome. That gives you agency and choice and power and
definitely,
and freedom from the external environment, because it's never going to look the way that you want it to. And if you're waiting for it to all line up, then you can be waiting a long time.
I think that's definitely the word that I'd use to describe it. That kind of mindset shift, things happen for me rather than to me, gave me that power. I felt in control. I felt like, yes, it's down to me now. I have the choice whether or not I dwell on the fact that I can't teach jiu-jitsu, but I can thrive in the fact that I've got time now to grow incremental gains, to grow me not-for-profit, start utilising social media a little bit more, spend more time with my family. It gave me the power back rather than, like you said, being a victim.
Because being in the outdoors, it quickly showed me that there was no point focusing on what went wrong or what I couldn't control, because if I was so absorbed in that, I was a mess. I was no good to my team. I was a hindrance on them, actually a drain. And so you have to reset and go, okay, well, given everything that's gone by, what can I do? What are the actual options? And it's such a powerful thing to see so clearly what you are in control of and what you're not. And I think so many people are so busy, we just get stuck into the mode of focusing on what's missing, what's wrong, what's lacking. And we never actually stop and go, oh, hang on, I'm thinking this particular way. Perhaps I can focus on, perhaps it would be a benefit if I focused on the things that I can do and just, shrug my shoulders. Hopefully those things I don't like will change.
Is there something that people, is it just as simple as making that decision to make that switch, or are there some things that people could actually start to do to make that transition a little bit easier?
Yeah, that's a great. I think if you've ever read the book, The Chimp Paradox.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
That was one of the other reviews that I did on my podcast, actually, The Chimp Paradox. That stuck with me for a good few years. That I always refer back to that book.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book, isn't it? He just explain, and it's just a theory, but it really works for how we are. And that chimp part of us who's scared and threatened and frustrated and worried, it's doing something physical, like deep, slow breathing, like walking in nature, like cold baths, all the stuff that you hear about, gratitude journals, all of these things calm the chimp. And so you're less focused on the things, because its job is to bring us all the stuff that's, all the problems, all the things that's going to remove our happiness. The trouble with that is when it gets on hyper alert, the whole world becomes dangerous. And that's a big part of post-traumatic stress, is just that chimp goes on hyper alert, and all it sees is danger everywhere. And you can't rest, you can't relax, and it turns into paranoia, it turns into sleeplessness, the whole shebang. But in many ways, a lot of us have that kind of hyper alert. Our chimp is so focused on what went wrong, what we did wrong, what could remove our happiness. And so worry, anxiety, panic is just everywhere. So calming the nervous system down, slowing down, is the best thing you can get for clarity and therefore more effectiveness. And it doesn't make any sense. My gran used to say, less haste, but more speed.
Yeah.
You slow down, you step back, you get a big picture, and then with that big picture, you get a sense of wisdom, you get intuition, you see all the facts, and you can do things. But if the chimp's driving in panic mode, then you don't see anything. You're just reacting, trigger. And so, yeah, it's a great question in terms of making different choices. you can. It is like, yes, I'm going to do things differently,
Yeah.
but it is also learning to slow down your physiology so you can get that step back from the chaos and the mess and the alarm, you know.
Yeah, I've just started. So through the whole of like lockdown, so that this last year has been the first time really that I've properly made a conscious choice to have a meditation practice consistently throughout this whole year. And I was using apps like Headspace and stuff like that to help me keep track and keep accountable. As well as the meditation, I've also started reading a lot about breathing. There was a book by James Nestor, I think, that was out early last year called Breath. I've just started reading, I think it's Patrick McKeown's Oxygen Advantage. Yeah. And when you were just talking there, Arjuna, about bringing your physiology down, I never really appreciated before taking all the kind of meditation and spiritual connotations out of it, but just the power of your breath to bring down and slow yourself down using a lower breath rate, diaphragmatic breathing, a lower cadence. It's such a powerful thing, but so simple. And I think people will shoo it off because they don't realize the importance of being able to breathe correctly.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, all the things that Paul Mort's been teaching all you guys is that when he lays it out, it's so simple. It's like, duh.
Yeah.
But if you do it regularly, it transforms us. It gives us such a foundation for a great life. And
yeah,
you know, we're looking for the complex answer, the glamorous, the new, the different, constantly. This cannot be enough, you know. And so doing stuff like simple, deep breathing, slowing down, drinking water, exercising, meditating, journaling, you know, all of the stuff is, people just go, it can't be that easy, but it is. You know? It is.
One of the things that was quite surprising, well, not surprising, but your book 200% is a book about getting a better life, meditation, all these kind of things. And in there as well, there's a quote by Dan John, who's a well-renowned American athletics track and field coach. And I've actually interviewed him on the podcast last year.
Sweet.
Which was amazing. Like, I read his books growing up and stuff, and he really influenced how I train today and lift weights and stuff. But he's a massive proponent of training is part of a bigger picture. So I think his philosophy, I'm going to butcher it, it's paraphrased, but it's like read great books, drink water, lift, carry, squat, hinge, study great artists. It's part of a bigger picture. And like you said, Arjuna, these simple little habits compounded and done consistently make a massive, massive impact, don't they?
Yeah. I think he's a modern day Renaissance man. And you know, we're really discovering this kind of sense of, I don't have to compartmentalize. I don't have to be one thing and restrict myself and define myself, this narrow vision.
Yeah.
You know, really, perhaps. And so many guys, especially meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, some of the softer martial arts, we go, what's the point? But they're thousands of years old. And so there is a point if you can find your way in. And so perhaps you can be a hunting, gathering, meat eating, squat machine, and also look after your recovery. Also consider great works of art, enjoy lovely glasses of, you know, the whole world's for us to enjoy. And so often we go, no, that's not for me. But people love it because there's something good in it. You know, it's endured the test of time because it lifts us. And when you embrace all of that sense of a Renaissance man who was good, tried to be good at everything, who embraced many different aspects of life, all of life, then you can't fail. You know? You only fail when you try and stick yourself in a small box. And unfortunately, that's like, something
it's almost like the samurais, Musashi, although he was a renowned warrior and had so many kills to his name with the sword, he was also a poet and a calligraphy writer, and he embraced the artistic stuff as well as the sword fighting. You had to have both to be I can't remember the phrase that he used, but to be this philosopher warrior or something, you had to have both directions. It's really interesting.
And people, you know, people listening to this may just go, you know, that's not for me, but perhaps there is something that you can explore that is for you. You know, so often we split, especially as guys, we go, okay, I'm a man, I'm masculine, therefore I have to be hard, there's a certain kind of sense of how we have to be in the world. And yet it's half of life at 50%. And perhaps just opening yourself up, and like Brene Brown, I don't know if you've ever watched any of her stuff, but
I know who she is, but I've never read anything by her.
Yeah. Well, if nobody else, if people like you, then she's got a 20-minute TED talk, and she talks about vulnerability and courage.
Right.
And especially in our split way of thinking, we think they're opposites. And yet all the research she's done and talked with in terms of the military, and she stood up in a bunch of US Marines and said, is there any courage without vulnerability? Can you truly be courageous and open and explorative and go beyond what you know without a sense of vulnerability? And they're all going, well, now you put it that way, no. And yet as guys, we try and be courageous and hard and tough, and yet that sense of vulnerability and opening up and decompartmentalizing is a wonderful thing.
Definitely.
But for me, it's not like, well, I have to go sniff flowers and put smelly candles in my bath. It's just being aware that I don't have to stick myself in a box, that I don't have to live how I was watching people and shown how to live.
Yeah.
That perhaps it's up for me to contact my own inner wisdom and see what's best for me and best for the moment.
It's kind of like,
sorry,
Arjuna, sorry to you, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, my dad, he's a wonderful guy, a wonderful dad, but he really had trouble hugging me. And, you know, as a kid, it's your dad, you just want to hug. And there was a certain age where he just kind of stuck out his hand instead. And I was just like, what's this? And it's just an amazing, and I know he didn't, you know, I know that's what his granddad did and grandfather did. Yeah, it's just interesting how instead of doing what you should do, it's interesting to see examine those cultural conditionings in our family traditions and just going, you know, is this the way I want to do it? So anyway, I'm all over my kids. So
yeah, no, definitely, as you should be. I think it's like the big thing now, especially around mental health, touching on what you were on about there, is self-care, having a little bit of time for yourself. And I think when we talk about you've got to have this masculine front all the time, at some points, like that bottle of pop that you keep shaking, the pressure, it's just going to explode, isn't it? So having that self-care practice, that time spent on your own, whether it's breathing or going out walking in nature, these things that are seen to be kind of less manly, it's part and parcel of the game, innit? You need to have that to be able to have, to your point, the masculine, protecting your family and all that kind of stuff. You need that self-care.
Yeah, I think so. And there's nothing wrong with being like a man filled with power and strength and integrity and honor and wanting to protect and all these kind of traditional virtues. But so often, you know, especially with the guys in the military, as you know yourself, we compartmentalize too much, and that's great for a time and a place, but it has to come out, it has to be released, and that's what we're not taught to do. You know, we're not taught to, hey, it's your time now, you can explore this stuff and be okay with it.
Yeah, and that was brilliant. That was what was brilliant about your book as well, showing you and explaining in a way that people like myself can understand, is that to fix any kind of external, you've got to go inside and look at how you perceive events that are happening. And that was massive, the battle between like the external and looking at what's going on inside. And the other meditations and spiritual books that I have read, that message was in there, but I think it appealed to me more the way you kind of explained it.
Oh, cool.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, we're all going around with a big fat pair of Coke bottle glasses. And we just don't realize what the filters that we're looking through, that we experience the world through. And you change those filters and the world changes, which is, and of course you can do things to change the world that bring you greater happiness and satisfaction. However, sometimes all you have to do is change the way you think about the world.
Yeah.
the way you see it, and you see it with fresh eyes. And it's, we're talking about the calming the chimp and bringing that physiology down. That's a type of filter too.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when you're calm and relaxed and at ease, the world is a much different place from when you're under threat or, angry.
Yeah. So what other kind of filters can people see the world through then?
Well, for me, it's really realizing that you do see through filters, and then
having that awareness.
Yeah, and then just appreciating or approaching each moment perhaps with innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And innocence is perhaps not a word that's used very often, but it doesn't mean naivety, but it just means freshness without expectation. Realizing when your brain's going, well, I should, and just going, put that to one side. Let's see if I can meet the need of the moment rather than some idea of how I should be. And then there's no middleman to living life.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I became a monk was because I didn't want any ordinary moments. And I saw the times when I was most alive was when I was most absorbed and immersed in what was going on in front of me. And that could have been running a waterfall, or it could have been at home doing the dishes. And what they both had in common was that I was utterly present, utterly wanting to experience the reality of now. I wasn't interested in something that would prevent direct communication with that, because kayaking, you need to have direct feedback, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. A military situation, same deal. But in fact, life in general, you want to have a direct communication with the moment as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we live so much of our life in our heads that we don't actually get out into our bodies, into our senses, into our reality, really. So
it's interesting you say that, because when I'm teaching or involved in jiu-jitsu, for those 2-3 hours, I am there. I'm completely present. I'm not focusing on what I've got to do at home, what I did yesterday. I'm completely present in the moment there. But then what I struggle with, and I'm getting better at it, but take myself out of that environment, just into everyday life, that's when I'm dwelling on the past, thinking about the future. And I'm getting better at being aware of that and stopping it. But it'd be good to understand why it's happening in the jiu-jitsu environment, and then pick it up and put it into my everyday life, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because you've got a one sole task. You can't think about the bills or where you're going next week, because immediately there's people who need you. You want to do your best job possible and communicate and direct and teach and show. And so you're absorbed and you love it. The power of love, because I'm so excited about this. I want to be there. And so for many people, a spiritual practice will be just doing what they love more, right? Because it makes us present. It grows and nourishes our spirit, our sense of aliveness. And really it's just to have that same sense of, I'm excited, I'm curious, I'm fascinated in each and every moment. And that's just a practice.
Mm-hmm.
We just come home and we kind of just switch off, and really it's all about switching on in the gentlest way. And I use the word curiosity a lot, because there are no boring moments, which boredom is a choice simply because we're switched off and expect life to entertain us. When life looks like this, when I'm at jiu-jitsu, when I'm on holiday, when I'm having a beer with my mates, when the pub's open, then I can experience aliveness. But really it's not outside in, it's the power of our attitude and our curiosity and our simple curiosity, innocence to fully appreciate what's in front of us.
So that's curiosity of even the act of washing dishes, being as present as you can into that. Feeling the water, feeling the soap suds on your hands, the plates, being totally present, so you can be grateful of that moment and appreciate it for what it is. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. And you may have come up, there's a mindfulness exercise where they get you to sit down with a box of raisins and each. I did it once and it just bored me silly.
That was kind of my first introduction to like meditation. What was it? Cognitive behavioral mindfulness, cognitive something like that, isn't it? Yeah. And that was one of the exercises, eating a raisin for 5 minutes and experiencing it.
And done once it's cool, but a whole packet for me, I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm talking about is, if you have to do something, then do it with your heart and soul. So if you're going to do the dishes, don't be bitching and whining and wishing you were somewhere else. Just do it. Do it fully. Going back to John, he likes to say it all the time. We used to, if it's important, do it every day.
Yeah.
If it's not important, don't do it at all.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do something on a similar lines, really just bring your whole heart and soul to it. If you're not enjoying it, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But often you got to be prepared for the consequences, because your wife or your partner or whatever is going to go, hey, come on, buddy, pull your weight. But
you think obviously technology and social media is now taking away from us being able to see the joy in every moment and having no ordinary moments?
Yeah, I think so.
Because when you said before, Arjuna, about boredom is a choice, as soon as we start being slightly boredom, we get the phones out, don't we? Boom.
Yeah.
Scrolling up and down, comparison and all that kind of stuff.
That's the word for me, is comparison, is that. Mm-hmm. And it can be in a good sense. Like, the value of social media for me is really being inspired, seeing people out there kicking ass, discovering new things, beautiful photos, the whole works, traveling, blah, blah, blah. But there's the flip side of that is exactly that, is comparison, that I'm not good enough. Mm. That look at this person's life, and it's the showroom, right? They splash up with filters and everything, all this glamour, and then we go, oh man, I'm not like that. I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. And it's such an easy trap to fall into it. And it's available 24/7. People can't sleep. They're just on their phones, just feeling worse about themselves because, I'm not out there making $1 billion by the time I'm 30 or whatever. But again, we didn't stop and go, actually, what is success to me? Is it owning a Lamborghini, or is it being the best father I can be, a best husband, best partner, or, someone once explained me in terms of resume virtues and eulogy virtues.
All right.
And so often we chase the stuff that we'd put on our CVs. I've achieved this, I've ticked this off, I've got skills in that, but we don't really focus on the things that at the end of our lives, we hope people will say about us.
Yeah.
When we're on our deathbeds looking back, we don't really spend much time on those things that are most important to us.
Yeah, it's it's like a very stoicism, and all the famous Stoic philosophers talk about, like, is it memento mori? Remember that you are going to die. Yeah. And it's a bit of a taboo. We never really discuss like death and stuff really, but you're only here for a short period of time. Embrace it, and yeah, I like that. What was it again, Arjuna? The eulogy.
Eulogy virtue versus a resume virtue.
Right, that's brilliant, man. Yeah.
But I think I put it in my book, but one of the US presidents kind of talked in terms of what's truly important versus what's urgent.
Mm-hmm.
And we give far too much importance to the urgent, which is the email, the text message, the tiny little stuff, rather than they're really giving urgency to the truly important.
Yeah.
And so when Chimp's in charge, we don't get any clarity. We just go, and it's all urgent. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is just slow down, step back, and go, hang on, what's really important? Am I doing it?
Yeah. One of the big things I've tried to, and it's from Paul Mort's influence, is your morning routines. Is big on morning routine and starting the day to set you up in a state that you can go on and win that day. And obviously, one of the biggest things what we've just really spoke about is not getting on your phone as soon as you wake up, and kind of checking in with yourself before you check in with the world. And you don't want to start the day already being deflated because you've not got that new car, you've not got the new job. So not even checking your phone in the first hour before you wake up, getting yourself ready to face the day. And that's been a massive thing for me, definitely. And it's people talk about morning routines and 1,000,001 things that you can do in the morning, but something as simple as not getting on your phone first thing. And maybe incorporating just some breathing exercises even that would be a massive. I think I was watching some of your Instagram videos before, and you were saying on one of the videos, just 10 minutes a day, and you're winning there, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, even 2 minutes, really.
Yeah.
No one can't do 2 minutes. It's it's like, or 5 breaths.
Yeah.
5 really slow breaths, and you don't have to sit on the floor in some stupid yoga position. Just be comfortable. Keep your eyes open. Maybe your eyelids soften. But 5 slow breaths. If that was your morning practice, awesome.
Yeah.
It's just we discount it. We think it's not enough. It's dumb. It's stupid. All the excuses that we make. Yeah.
One of the biggest differences, again, from when you did the training on the quarterly last year, when I've tried to, and I don't do much longer than 10 minutes. 10 minutes for me seems to be like the golden time. Getting frustrated, because I'm quite a competitive person, but with myself. I don't necessarily compete against other people, but I compete against myself quite a lot, and I'll beat myself up if I'm not kind of getting better than what I was doing. So the meditation became almost like a numbers game. If my thoughts had drift off, I was getting frustrated with myself, because the day before I managed to maybe do like 7 minutes before drifting, thinking about other things. And one of the biggest differences, what you came out with in the quarterly was, hang on, let me get this right. So it was, don't concentrate on the fact that you're forgetting, embrace when you remember. So don't beat yourself up for forgetting, congratulate yourself because you remembered, and you were supposed to be remembering at that point, which was brilliant. It
takes the self-punishment out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the fact is we're in training. Our minds are like little puppies that just run everywhere, and we're training them.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning to relax and focus on one thing at a time. And because we're getting better, we will mess up. And that's the fact of it. And just celebrating the remembering, that's the repetition. That's how you get stronger, is the return.
Yeah.
Great, I'm awake. This is the only moment I can awake. I can spend it berating myself for having forgotten, or just really be curious and alive and awake.
Yeah. Again, it's that choice, isn't it? You talk about the choice, like you can choose to suffer, or you can choose to not suffer and celebrate the fact that you remembered, or the fact that you was back to present again, washing the dishes. We have that choice. People might say, oh, it's all right for you, or it's easy for you, but everyone has that choice, I suppose, don't they, in that instance. Yeah,
everybody. And just the more you make it, the more ingrained it becomes, the more of a habit. And the fact is, we're useless at making mistakes, right? we would rather do nothing and stay safe than risk looking like a fool to ourselves, to our neighbors, our friends. And so getting over that particular filter, that mindset, having an attitude of, you know what, I am going to mess up, but at least I'm trying. I mean, that's the only way we've ever improved at anything ever. But it's a tough call, because we believe that if I make a mistake, I'm somehow stupid. I'm not good enough, and so I might as well quit. But and again, that comparison, we see people at the finished, polished end result, and we don't see the hard work and all the mistakes that took them there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that mindset shift, again, for me, embracing that failure stuff, again, that I've learned from Paul Morton, and since working with him and obviously reading your book, the mindset shift in understanding people, and that people probably don't actually care that much about you. So if you fail, you're going to look stupid in front of your friends, and you look stupid on social media. People are more self-involved than we think. Do you know what I mean? I think people don't actually care that much.
Yeah. But like the voice you talked about, the voice in our heads that's so self-critical and so aggressive to ourselves is a big part of this. And that's just the monkey, the chimp, trying to keep us safe. And really, again, understanding that there's a big part of us that will criticize and doubt and say, don't do it. But you get to recognize, I think, too, that all the greatest times of your life is that we've ventured forward beyond our zone of comfort, we've ignored that voice of resistance, as Stephen Pressfield puts it, and gone, you know what, I'm going to jump and see what happens, and we'll learn on the way type deal. So.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said before, Arjuna, it's that everyone is going to experience that resistance, aren't they? And it's having that awareness. The awareness is key in it, that what is that little voice in your head going, you don't want to do this really, or your nerves, not understanding how your body's going to react when you step out your comfort zone.
Yeah.
The more practice, the more training, the more reps you get in, little incremental steps, then that can make you progress forward, can't it? But having that awareness, first of all.
Yeah. That it's a good thing. That everybody is uncertain. Everybody. I think a big part of panic attacks and anxiety is that we've been taught that being afraid is wrong. That being uncertain, you're doing something wrong if you're uncertain or feeling insecure. Yeah. But the fact is, everybody has those feelings. It's just whether they ignore them or they let them overwhelm them. You know? Just that it's this kind of sense of perfection that, back in the 90s, there was no fear, a clothing label.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I think I had a back turn cap thing with no fear on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got the sentiment but the way we've taken it was like, fear is wrong. And you have, I was telling someone the other day, like we tell our kids, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. But the world is a scary place. And so you will be afraid. It's a natural response to uncertainty. However, you can see it as an invitation, what's behind fear, or you can resist it and push it away and get more and more anxious. And it just, people don't have a good relationship with fear, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm reading Jordan Peterson's new book at the moment, and it's deep, but I'm not going to try and explain it, but there's a few chapters where he talks about like going on the other side of fear, and he uses like Harry Potter and the archetypal myths and what Harry Potter resembles in terms of going after your goals and being the hero, and you've got to break some rules but stick to rules to find the growth in failure and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to try and explain it, but really fascinating, and for some reason it resonates. I don't really understand what I'm reading a lot of the time, but there's something in there that it's right. There's a truth in there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he's an amazing dude, isn't he?
Yeah, fantastic. I can't believe there's people out there like him and so clever and intelligent and having the thoughts that he has. It's mind blowing. Yeah.
I think, one of the things that I've heard him talk about on his podcast that really seems true to me is that when you have inner wisdom, when you allow the mud of your mind to settle, your inner wisdom will naturally show you the best possible thing to do for yourself and for everybody. And in that case, we don't need rules and laws in society. We just need more wise, good people.
Yeah.
We know in our gut, we know what's right and good for us. It's just that we never listen, or we don't slow down enough to hear it. Right?
Yeah.
And so hence we get slapped with a whole bunch of laws, and it's necessary to keep people in order. And so you get things like the 10 Commandments: don't kill your neighbor, don't lust after you, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we know in our heart of hearts, when we're wise, when we're clear, we know what to do. We know how to live. We know we become a lighthouse. We become really what the best possible version of for us, for ourselves and for everybody. But it does take that sense of contacting your own wisdom and really examining the messages of should that we're being given.
Mm-hmm.
And so that instead of being unconscious, I think the way forward to a better world, to a better life personally, is to become more conscious of our inner knowing, of our intuition, of our really what is right for us, and being able to stand up for that. Like Jordan talks about all the time. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that he talks about is he's quoted as saying before that there's a consequence in everything that you do. You don't get to choose for there not to be a consequence. So which poison are you going to take? Yeah. Because whatever you do, good or whether you do, if there wasn't any laws, whether you do good or bad, intuitively, there's there's going to be repercussions or a consequence to what you do, to your actions.
Yeah.
It just depends what your choice, again, comes down to the choice, what you choose to do.
Yeah, and whether you can live with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, isn't it? Whether you are content and accepting of who you are, or whether, you know, the way I used to live life was wake up in the 3 in the morning just going, I should have done that differently, you know.
Yeah.
I knew I should have didn't. And I let everybody, you know. Yeah. So just that sense of berating ourselves, as opposed to, and that's a phase I think we all go through before we go, you know what, the inner voice says I want to do it like this, let's take a jump and give it a try, because that's the only way I can live with myself, really.
Yeah. Like I said before, the inner chimp is programmed to be negative, isn't it? It's always going to be, it sees the negatives and then it sees evidence of the negative to support it. It's always going to be negative, and it's understand that awareness again.
Yeah.
To understand the way I'm talking to myself now is probably not that productive. Let's do something to change my state. Let's get that positive spin back on it.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, just understanding the way the way we work is such a powerful thing. So a little bit of study and a little bit of self-study goes a long, long way. But so many people will just go, well, this is the way I am. And it's like, sure. But these are the cards you've been given, but you can play them however you want. You can make more moves and get more cards, different cards. So
one of the things you spoke about in your book, and it's similar to what I've just been on about then with the chimp paradox and that, but it's don't believe your thoughts. I wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit for people who are listening.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're in a good mood, when you have a good state, your emotion, your thoughts are different from when your state is when you're exhausted, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed. They change all the time. And for me, I realized I was a victim. I was so a prisoner of my own mind. And I wanted to step back away from that, because I realized that was happening. When I had a good night's sleep, then my attitude, my thoughts, my mind was such a nicer place to be in. And really, I wanted to learn how to step back from that to create a different state, yes, but really to create more space so that when my mind spoke, I didn't automatically jump. You know, there was a sense of becoming more conscious, becoming more aware of that the voices in my head are an option, not necessary, not letting them be a reality.
Yeah.
And the same with emotion, just seeing that emotion will flow through and flow out, but not, it's just a thing. It's like the weather. It's not who I am. It constantly changes.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to engage and give energy to every thought that comes into your head or every emotion. You can simply just let them wash by. Yeah.
Because
James Smith, I've just finished reading James Smith's book, the PT, and he has an interesting thing in the book about your thoughts and your emotions are like picking up rocks. If you see a rock, you don't have to pick it up and see how heavy it is. You can just walk past the rock. That's quite an interesting way of looking at like your thoughts and that as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But we just, you know, we're kind of half asleep all the time, really, and so we do that by habit. And you know, one of the benefits of a spiritual practice really is the relationship with your mind and becoming more and more aware of what you're telling yourself, and whether you want to keep planting those seeds in your garden or plant something different. So it's a.
So the practice that you do, Arjuna, Ascension, how is that different to other kinds of meditation practice, or is it different?
Yeah, I mean, it involves some. It's called attitudes, but just some phrases. You could call them mantras, but they are like sweet little phrases based around praise, gratitude, love, compassion. That I don't know how they work, but they just still the mind very easily. They bring you to a place of separation from, you know, just that half step back. They allow you to remember that sense of you beyond your mind, beyond the emotion. The presence of now, you could put it. How I don't know if you've ever looked in the mirror and gone, man, my skin is, my face is looking different, but I don't feel different. I don't feel different from when I was 5.
Yeah.
There's part of us that never ever changes, and it's really having an anchor in that while we go out and do all the things that we want to do.
So those attitudes are something that you would, like a mantra in transcendental meditation, it's something that you would repeat to yourself over and over again for a certain amount of time during your meditation.
Yeah, but it's more like a tuning fork. You hit a tuning fork and they kind of resonate. You think one of these attitudes and you just let it sink into your mind and use it to focus on and resonate with. And then there's a period of time goes by and then you'll just drop another one in.
Right.
So
it's not really personal to you as well, your attitudes? Are they personal?
No, they're all the same. They're all the same. But there's part of it that there's a couple words that kind of you get to choose that are based around your idea of the greatest force for good. What is it to you that is greater than you, that is working for you, that means life is trying to bring you what you want?
Right.
And in classical religion, you could refer that to as God or Allah or whatever. But really, it's about your definition of that. See, my problem with organized religion was that I felt like I was always being told what to do. This is the way it is. And I had little choice in the matter.
Right.
And for me, it's been, the more I've done this, it's more a discovery of that, and having a more of a relationship with what is it that is out there that I can't see and I can't touch, but I kind of think might be there. That what is it that's bigger than me? What is it that means a seed, when you put it in the ground, it writes its way up, and what creates all this harmony? Is it just all one big mistake, or is it just some sort of harmony, some sort of natural law?
Yeah.
And so it's finding a word to describe that. Is a concept of that. And so part of it is set for everybody, and part of it's unique to everybody.
Yeah. Do you find that the people you speak to who start to embrace and look at meditation, they are generalizing, but they are looking for that? There must be more. There must be something more. Do you find that? Or
I think people come at many different places. Sometimes, people want less stress, be able to sleep better. Perhaps they want less addiction and things like that. But I think quite a few people are saying, I want more aliveness. I don't want to be distracted and worried and angry and snappy. I want to be that best version of myself. And I want to discover what there is beyond, all the pretty things I can fill my life with, all the stuff, all the doings. Who am I? How can I be more? And finding that balance between doing and the sense of you as a human being.
Yeah. You talk about not looking to add to, looking to take stuff away.
Yeah.
Is that going back again to just being okay with who you are without all these like material and stuff like that, just being okay with me now rather than when?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by that? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think we're all kind of hooked on this idea that I need to be different. I'm not good enough until, and so often we get on this sort of spiritual path, or we start reading books, and it's like, I must need to understand more. I need more knowledge. I need this. I need that. I need to develop my, almost like a belt system. I'm aiming for my black belt in spirituality or acceptance. And it's like, it really is a practice of subtraction, of learning who you truly are beyond the filters, beyond the belief that I need to be different, that I should be different, coming to a place, as you said, of absolute acceptance of who we are right here and right now. And a lot of the psychologists, the psychotherapists of the world, like Carl Jung and those kind of guys, have said time and time again that change only happens when you fully accept yourself. when you try and pressurize yourself to be different, that's the least best way of change. You know, it all starts with this is what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah.
That guy I talk about in my book, James Stockdale, he was the stoic US Navy fighter pilot. Yeah, shot down over Vietnam, spent 6 or 7 years being tortured by a nightmare. But he said, you know, the people who didn't survive were the optimists, the ones who didn't actually look at their situation saying it might be like this for some time.
Yeah.
They were constantly looking for a future moment, going, we'll be out soon. And he had two things: the idea that, yes, I will be out, but I don't know when. Right now, what's the brutal facts of my situation? What do I have to really surrender to and go, this is it. This is what I've got to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was interesting that he had to accept the position he was in, but he couldn't relinquish the fact that hope, there's something, I'm working towards something. So there's that like fine line between having the acceptance and understanding the situation he was in, but still having a bit of hope that it will come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
Unbelievable guy, fascinating that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And just what we started this conversation, is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
Which could have been an easy attitude for him to take on.
Definitely,
and he said, no, this is going to be the making of me as a man. I don't understand it, but sometime in the future, I will benefit from this. So he was a total, this is happening for me.
Yeah.
But in terms of,
you wonder, people in, like, another example is Viktor Frankl, isn't it? In the concentration camps, Man's Search for Meaning, how he understood that he could choose the attitude he got to have in that situation, and that the Germans couldn't take away his ultimate choice to choose his attitude in any given situation. And you think that we're struggling to do it in our lives. How did he do it in those extreme circumstances? Unbelievable.
Well, I think that's the beauty of being thrown into a pit, because you really get to see with great clarity what works, what doesn't work. What's truly important and what's just urgent rubbish. You know, sometimes when you're in a situation like that, it's the greatest blessing, because you see, this, I don't want to be like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our lives, it's kind of, it's not sharp enough. You know, there's that story about the guy who visits the farmer, and off in the distance there's this howling, and the visitor said, who's that? What's going on? And he says, that's my dog. He's sitting on a nail. And the visitor's like, what? Why doesn't he just get off? Like, because it doesn't hurt him enough yet.
Right, yeah.
You know, we get so comfortable sitting on a nail, sitting on a fence, and sometimes it's the dark times in our lives which are our greatest blessing, because it's the springboard to totally transcend them, rather than just kind of suffer on, you know, hoping it will get better one day. It's not bad enough that I need to make change, which is always inconvenient. But, you know,
I know.
It's the curse of a pretty good life.
Yeah, the curse of a good life, yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit, Arjuna? When we had a bit of back and forth on MSN, you mentioned that you're working with EOD once lockdown ends. Could you talk a little bit about the stuff that you're doing there? Because I can't think of any time when, in any kind of occupation, that being calm and controlling your breathing actually would be like the most important thing ever.
Yeah. So EOD, bomb disposal to all those civilians out there. Well, I think, you know what, talking to these guys, that's what I thought too. But really it's not so much their job, because they love it. You know, they're in EOD because they love what they do and they just want to be released.
Right.
But any government department, there's not enough money, there's not enough people. Do you know, it's the pressures of that and the stupid little paperwork jobs, the shit that comes down from the top brass, the relationships, being away from your family during the week, postings, you know, the whole military deal. It's the little things, right? It's not so much the combat, the diffusing the bombs, doing the stuff they were trained to do. It's all the peripherals that, like anyone really, when we're doing the thing that we were trained to do, that we love to do, we're on a high. We could do it all year long. It's the stuff that takes us away. So it's really finding that link and giving people, again, what can you live with, what can you control, what can't you live with, what can't you control, and just getting people to slow down, calm their monkey, step back and go, okay, I'm just going to have to suck this up. This is just something that I have to do to get what I want, to get a pension at the end of my 7 years, or to just because my family is in such a better place if I stay in this role. I want that, therefore I can live with this. Or when you look at it clearly, going, you know what, I can't be in here for another 7 years. I can't take another 7 years. I'm off. But all of a sudden, we're not sitting on a fence, right? We're not just hurting ourselves, howling. We're going, I'm jumping, I'm making a decision. And that's part of the course, but part of it is meditation, mindfulness, teaching people to slow down, showing them what yoga is, and just a whole bunch of things like that.
Do you still practice yoga? Do you still do yoga?
A little more as a warm-up, cool down. Before, I've got some kettlebells downstairs, so I take the kids and go do some exercise while my lady sleeps in. So just as a little way of keeping flexible and warmed up and stuff.
I must admit, I found it beneficial for jiu-jitsu as well. Just like you said before, building a bit more resilience in your body, stretching it out and building that strength in certain positions and stuff. It's underutilized. It's because I've always found stretching boring. It's like something that I know I should do it, but it's not the exciting lifting weights and rolling around kind of stuff, is it? But as I get a little bit older, I understand the importance of it now. And
stuff like foam rolling, right? It's not pleasant, but it's good.
Definitely. I wonder if you could touch on, just before we go, Arjuna, how do you approach a subject, meditation, with kids? I'm doing a project at the moment with young kids who are about to kind of transition to secondary school. How do you approach a subject of meditation with like kind of 8, 9, 10-year-olds, young kids?
I haven't done a lot of teaching with kids, but I assumed when I first worked with them, that their life was golden. They're living in this little sheltered, bubbled paradise, and it was really clear they weren't. They worry, they take on their parents or their brothers and sisters' worries. They see a lot. They see people compromising. They see people being dishonest. They're really confused, a lot of them. And so I think you can talk. I think just talk straight, talk on that level, talk that they are confused and struggling, and they don't quite know why or how, but they do know what it's like to be peaceful and calm and feel safe. And give them ways of A, trusting their own intuition, and B, being able to slow down and know what to do when they get angry or scared or worried. Put it on that. I mean, when I was 10, I was so depressed because I thought the world was going to end through nuclear war. I didn't want to leave the house. I was petrified from a very young age that I'd never see my family again. And in many ways, what a horrible thing for a 10-year-old to have to live with. I was almost suicidal. That's like, well, I might as well kill myself because I don't want to be away from home and have the bomb go off. But being in a pit sometimes is the greatest thing that can happen. But if someone came along and said, you're not stupid, you're not, there's a reason for this. This is a good thing. Let's use it creatively. Let me show you how to manage that. That would have been the best thing possible.
Mm-hmm.
But all the adults go, you don't have a problem, you're 10.
Maybe that's the flip side of it then. Instead of trying to teach the kids more about meditation, teaching parents that a 10-year-old's life isn't what you think it is, all golden, and there's no stress, no strain. Get the parents to maybe put themselves in the, because you forget, don't you, what it's like to be maybe 10, 11-year-old and the worries that you do have about being in school, and especially nowadays with, I know some 10-year-olds might not have social media profiles and stuff, but the pressures, the social pressures to maybe be more grown up than you need to be at that age.
The trouble with that is the parents really need to get their life together too.
Because
how often we were on our phones and our kids just want 5 minutes of attention. We're like, no, I'm on my phone, and it's really transforming the whole family dynamic of,
like we said before at the beginning, which kind of brings us right back to the beginning, where you never know who's watching. If the kids are watching the parents on phones and not giving them any notice, and that's what they're going to think is all right then.
Yeah, that's the way you do it. I crave this attention, and yet mum seems to be giving it all to this thing. I thought I could do both. I thought I could be on my phone and with my family, and it was just so clear I can't. I just can't have my phone there. I have to put it in another room because I'm just tempted to pick it up.
Yeah.
But moving out of the way means I can have the relationships with my kids and my wife that I want to have, rather than there's all these engineers that are paid millions of dollars for our attention. We're powerless against it. So for me, the only way is to like any addict, a little bit is too much. It just blows up.
It's kind of like the currency for the tech world. The currency now is attention, isn't it? That's what people are paying for our attention. Like you said, phones, and the more and more you've got to physically put the phone somewhere else to not have that addiction.
That's what I have to. And when the kids are in bed, then I get on, and I give myself 15 minutes to scroll through Instagram and mess around. And fantastic. But then I have to go, you know what? That's enough. Let's really nurture my relationship with my wife. Because we can sit on the couch, both of us are in completely different worlds. It's like,
I know.
And maybe one night that's no deal, but if it's happening night after night after night, the relationship suffers. Relationships are growing things. They need constant attention, and if you don't give it that, they suffer. And so
if you're not growing, you're dying.
I
think was it Tony Robbins who said something like that, was it? Or you're not growing, you're ultimately by default you're dying, aren't you?
I'm sure of it.
So Arjuna, thank you for your time today. I won't take up too much more of your day, but if anyone's interested in finding out more about Ascension meditation and stuff that you do, where's best for people to go?
Well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm doing my best to make social media a little bit better. At least my corner of it. And arjunaishaya.com is my website.
Cool. And hopefully people can listen to your book review that I did.
It's fantastic. I
appreciate listening to it.
I love what you do, and I'm so glad I was looking for something else, and I just Googled my name on Apple Podcasts, and I was like, hang on, that's awesome.
Well, thank you. And it's amazing that I got the opportunity to talk to you for a little bit as well. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And if there's anything I can do for you, just shout, just let me know. All right. I'd love to help.
Thank you, Arjun. I really appreciate that.
Cool.
Thanks again, mate. Cheers.
Take care, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.